Hi everyone, good morning. I hope you're doing well. Today is oops, our Qualitative Wednesday on June 9th, and we are all good. Yes. Let me go here so if anything happens while we are live, I can respond right away. Good morning. I hope you're doing well. June 9th, 2021. Today is about serving two masters. And when I say serving two masters, I am really referring to something that I have experienced in the past 2 years as I have defined the services and what I do with Quali Q. I often get the question of, so who is your client? Who do you serve? Like, who is your ideal client when it comes to the programs and services and offerings you have for Quali Q? And in the beginning, I must say that it was a bit challenging to really define that. And some days I still feel like I'm serving two masters. The reason why I say that is because both supervisors and graduate students fall under what I consider the umbrella of my services and programs. And as you can imagine, those two positions are very different. You would know whether you are in one of them or the other. You have been on a journey. So if you are a supervisor now, you were a graduate student one day and you likely remember your experiences. They might have been extremely positive, or they might have been something you would not like to repeat ever again. And it's interesting because one of the reasons why I even decided to write this blog post is because I have a number of members and people who have been part of QRB, Qualitative Research Blueprint, who are in a position that most of us or many of us can relate, and we definitely don't envy it. And it's feeling alone in your journey as a graduate student and not really knowing how much you can expect from a supervisor. So because of that experience and those things, those testimonials that I hear from my students, but also given that I serve two masters, so all of you who are already in academic positions might be hearing me saying this or might be watching this video later, and you are in the supervisory position. And yes, I have many clients and students in QRB that struggle in that graduate student position. But that doesn't mean that I am placing blame on supervisors. I think there is definitely a structural issue within academia, things that fall under the responsibility of our supervisors or supervisors that make their time and capacity really limited to supervise their students. This is particularly problematic for qualitative research because qualitative research is, as I have said again and again, highly relational. And graduate students who are trying to get it right, they often I would say desperately need the expertise of someone who has come before them, who has more experience than they have, and who can be their sounding board. One thing that I often say to the graduate students that I work with is not to think that they are less competent or less than someone else because they are really missing the expertise of their supervisors, especially if the supervisors are not really being involved in their project or allowing them to have time, one-on-one time with that person. So this is something, let's start with those of you who are in the graduate student position, this is something for you to understand, that the fact that you might be feeling like, oh, I am such a needy student, like I feel like I really need my supervisor or my mentor for this. That's likely not the case. Having not, I don't want to use the word having insecurities. I was about to use it. Having the desire to actually discuss your research with someone that you trust, and to actually be potentially like criticized. And when I say criticized in this way, like with that critical pair of eyes that someone who cares about you and your program and your research would be doing, like asking critical questions, challenging you in that sense of the word criticizing, being critical about your word for you to growth, does not make you needy or less competent. I think, in fact, it really demonstrates your commitment to growing and improving your research skills. If you are in a situation where that's not happening, I did write on the blog post that I feel there is room for trying to approach that subject, as sensitive as it might be, with your supervisor, and saying, I really am missing this, and I am insecure about my steps and how I'm looking at my data, and really wanting someone to walk on this journey with me and to ask me questions that might really elevate my work, my writing, and how I interpret my findings. There's no guarantee that that will be a fruitful conversation. And that's where I also mentioned that you can and should keep it in mind that if you don't get what you need from your supervisor, you can seek a community of practice outside of that relationship. Even if it's solely to discuss your growth, your questions, your reflexivity, your positionality, and not necessarily delve into specific aspects of your research. That's where I mentioned joining Quali Q for Qualitative Minds, and you're here ready, but being more mindful and purposeful in asking questions here. I often say I think this group is still underutilized from a perspective of you being able to ask questions. I think there is probably a bit of fear and vulnerability that is involved in that, because as soon as you post a question, you are essentially showing what you don't know, or the things that you might find out that you don't know that you don't know. So it's a position of vulnerability. And if that is something that makes you uncomfortable in a Facebook group, I get it. And it is not the only way. And that's why I did make a point of having Maxie and Christine and 2 blog posts about that relationship back in March or April. I'm not sure now. But Maxie and Christine were 2 guests for our blog posts. I interviewed them, and those blog posts are probably going to be one of my all-time favorites, because that relationship really exemplifies the importance of relationships in qualitative research. And of course, I would like my 2 masters, those of you who are graduate students and those of you who are supervisors, to be in that relationship that Maxie and Christine had. It is different, I understand, because those 2 researchers were equals in terms of their position in their career, whereas it would be silly for us not to recognize the power differentials that exist between a supervisor and a graduate student. That, however, being properly acknowledged and recognized, doesn't mean that the relationship cannot be established, enriched, fostered throughout the qualitative research program. So for those of you who are supervisors who are watching this, and I hope some of you will be watching this up until this point, I want to say to always keep it in mind that you are a leader of your research and you are leading a team that might include not only graduate students but also research assistants, graduate research assistants, research coordinators. And your guidance, your leadership, your mentorship means a lot to those who are working with you. That often translates into time. And time is something that we know it's a non-renewable resource, and something that throughout the ebbs and flows of the academic year, there might be times that you just feel like you cannot give more time to anyone else because you simply don't have it. And this is where I am going to be challenging you as a supervisor to really think, how much do you prioritize building that relationship with your students and trainees and those working under you while they are conducting, and when I say like conducting and analyzing as well, qualitative data? How much are you prioritizing being there while they are in the weeds of conducting their qualitative research? It is an investment for you as much as it is an investment for them, because the publications that might come out of the work, the impact that the work might have in the future, will elevate not only their career but yours as well, and yours as well. And having your presence in that process is probably one of the key things to ensure that you both get to that point where the work is published, presented, and able to impact communities as much as it is able to impact your own careers. So it's really interesting to think about that from that perspective. As I said, I am not afraid anymore of saying that, yes, I serve 2 masters. And sometimes serving 2 masters create dynamics for me, and I have to step into a role that I haven't had yet as a formal supervisor. I might in the future, but not right now. I don't have that role. So it might be something that my masters, my clients who are academics might be like, you don't really understand what it is like. And yeah, I don't think I do. And I would pretend, or I would be saying something that I really haven't had the experience if I said I have been in your position. What I know though is that I have had excellent mentors, and I've learned from them, and I've learned from them based on what they did with me. So as much as possible, I do try to share with you the things that really worked well in my journey, observing them, working with them, and seeing how they did things. I think each situation is unique. Each situation within certain academic institutions, across countries, across continents, all of that will bring contextual factors that will likely be unique, and I will never be aware to cover all of that because I'll never be aware to fully know the experience across the globe. And that's why I'm telling you, it's not that it doesn't matter. Those contextual factors matter a lot. But at the end of the day, it's really thinking about the things that I said. You were a leader of your research if you were the supervisor. Your time is really important, but dedicating and prioritizing, giving your trainees some of your time is crucial. to their success, to the success of the research, and to your success as well. And that's all I have to share today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I feel like it is one that I feel really passionate about, and I hope it does trigger some reflection and insight into how you are doing in that position of trainee or mentor. And let me know if you have any thoughts about it. Have a wonderful rest of your week, everyone. Bye for now.